Deep within the mountains lived an old hermit who was very skilled at crafting all kinds of tools. He was so good that his tools were coveted by everyone, especially the king, who had heard about the hermit's skills. So one day he sent some men to go find him. "I hear you are the best toolmaker in the world," the king said when they arrived. "It is true," replied the old man. "And what can I make for you?" The king explained that his daughter had broken her favorite vase and he needed someone to fashion a new one just like it. But there was a catch. It wasn't just any vase. It had to be done perfectly, or else he would have the craftsman put to death. The hermit knew this would be a big challenge, but he accepted the task. A few days later, the king returned to see how things were progressing. The vase was almost finished, but the hermit asked him to wait until the next day to see the finished product. The king, anxious to see the vase, agreed. However, that night he couldn't sleep, so he decided to sneak out and take a peek at the vase himself. But when he got to the shop, the door was locked and the windows shuttered, so he tried to look in through a crack in the wall. And there he saw the hermit hunched over the workbench, working by the light of a small fire. And sitting on the table next to him was the most beautiful vase the king had ever seen. The old man must have sensed the king watching because he stopped what he was doing and looked right at him. Startled, the king quickly ran back to the castle. When he got there, he ordered his men to go back to the hermit's house and arrest him for finishing the vase early. But when they arrived at the hut, they found no one there. In fact, the door was unlocked and everything was left exactly as the king had seen it the night before. The men searched everywhere, but they didn't find a single trace of the old man. And when they returned to the castle and told the king what happened, he realized that the only way the hermit could have escaped was across the river, which was very wide and flowed very fast. And on the other side was a sheer cliff. But there was also a cave on the other side, one that no one knew about. Had the hermit used this cave to escape? Was he hiding inside now? The king didn't know, but he wanted to find out. So without telling anyone, the king went to the river bank and waded into the water. He was soaked to the bone by the time he got to the middle, but he kept going until he reached the other side. Then he walked up the hill and peered into the cave. Inside was the hermit, sitting quietly as if waiting for him. "You shouldn't be here," the old man said. "Why did you come?" The king stammered, trying to explain that he just wanted to see if he had finished the vase, but the hermit interrupted him. "Do you really want to see it?" he asked. And when the king nodded, the hermit stood up and walked to a corner of the cave where he picked up a large rock and threw it into the air. And then to the king's astonishment, it turned into the most beautiful vase he had ever seen. The hermit repeated the trick several more times, turning rocks into all kinds of beautiful objects. And finally he said, "This is my real craft. I am not a mere tool maker." The king, humbled by what he had seen, bowed his head and admitted that he was wrong to suspect the old man. And from that day forward, the king never ordered anyone to be put to death without first consulting the hermit. Once upon a time in a village near a deep dark forest, there lived a young girl named Alara who loved to read books. She would spend hours at the local library reading all kinds of books, especially those with exciting adventures. One day while exploring the library's attic, she came across an old dusty book that no one had ever read before. As she opened it, strange symbols and diagrams caught her eye. Suddenly, the room started to shake violently, and when the dust settled, Alara noticed that the pages of the book were glowing brightly. Startled, she closed the book, but it was too late. A beam of light shot out from between the pages and enveloped her in its warm glow. When she could see again, Alara found herself in a lush green meadow surrounded by tall trees. A winding path led into the distance, and in the sky above were 3 moons instead of 1. Taking a deep breath, she realized that she wasn't in the library anymore. Confused and scared, Alara began to walk along the path, hoping to find someone who could help her. After walking for a while, she came across a talking squirrel who sat on a nearby tree branch. "Hello," said the squirrel. "Can you help me find my way home?" "I don't belong here," replied Alara. But the squirrel just laughed and said, "You don't belong here. This is the Whisperwood and we do not welcome outsiders." "I'm sorry," whispered Alara, feeling tears welling up in her eyes. Just then, the squirrel jumped down from the branch and approached her. "Wait," he said. "Perhaps I can help you after all. Follow me." Alara wiped away her tears and followed the squirrel into the forest. They walked in silence for a while, and Alara couldn't help but notice that the trees seemed to be whispering to each other. The squirrel suddenly stopped and turned to her. "Welcome to Whisperwood," he said. Here the trees communicate telepathically and the animals speak our language. We also have magical powers, but you will have to earn our trust to learn more. Alara nodded, eager to discover the secrets of Whisperwood. Together, they continued deeper into the forest until they reached a clearing where a group of animals were gathered. A wise old owl perched on a low-hanging branch and hooted softly. "Alara has come to learn about our magic," announced the squirrel. The animals murmured amongst themselves, but the owl raised his wing to silence them. "Very well," he hooted. "We will teach her our ways, but she must prove herself worthy." The owl explained that Alara would have to complete 3 tasks to earn their trust and learn the secrets of Whisperwood. First, she would have to find the hidden spring, solve the riddle of the bramble patch, and decipher the language of the trees. Each task would test her courage, intelligence, and compassion, and only by completing all 3 would she be allowed to learn their magic. Alara, determined to succeed, accepted the challenge. With the help of the animals, she began her first task. They led her to a babbling brook, where she had to search for a hidden spring. Following the sound of distant singing, she discovered a small opening in the rocks, and when she stepped through it, she found a beautiful garden filled with flowers and herbs. In the center, a crystal-clear spring bubbled merrily. Alara realized that the spring was the heart of Whisperwood's magic, and she felt rejuvenated by its peaceful energy. The animals gathered around her, and the owl announced, "You have completed the first task. Now you must face the brambles." The brambles were a thick, thorny patch that blocked the path forward, but Alara remembered the owl's advice to solve their riddle. Touching the brambles gently, she whispered a kind word, and to her surprise, the thorns parted and she was able to pass through. As the animals cheered, Alara realized that kindness and respect were powerful tools in Whisperwood. Her final challenge was to decipher the language of the trees. The ancient oak, the wisest of them all, spoke to her in a rustling whisper, but Alara struggled to understand its words. Suddenly, she remembered the old book from the library. Quickly, she pulled it out from her bag and began to flip through its pages. Finding the right symbol, she traced it in the air, and the tree continued speaking. Slowly but surely, she began to grasp the language of the trees, and the owl announced that she had successfully completed all 3 tasks. Overjoyed, the animals embraced her, welcoming her as one of their own. The wise old owl presented her with a pendant that glowed with the magic of Whisperwood. "With this, you can call upon us for help whenever you need it," he hooted. Alara, filled with gratitude, thanked the animals for teaching her their ways. Using the pendant, she called upon the magic of Whisperwood and was whisked away to the library attic. Back in the real world, the book lay open on the floor beside her. As the sunlight streamed through the attic window, Alara knew that her adventure in Whisperwood was over, but the magical pendant around her neck reminded her of the enchanting forest and the friends she had made there. From that day on, Alara visited Whisperwood often, using the pendant to travel back and forth between the 2 worlds. She shared her magical adventures with no one, except for the animals, who became her cherished companions in a world where imagination and reality intertwined.